Hello, my beautiful business girlies. Welcome to week 3 of Launch Your Business in 60 Days. I am so excited because today is a very, very important but very exciting time. We are going to talk all about setting our prices, figuring out if we're going to package or do a la carte, and then we're going to go into all of our policies and fees to go into the contract that we're going to create for all of our brides and our services. So let's dive right on in. If you have any questions, please leave in the comments down below. I would love to see where you're at. My entire education platform is going to be linked down below for you. There's all kinds of free education and some paid education, so check that out if you need a little bit more. All right, so first let's talk about the biggest elephant in every room, and that is pricing. We're going to talk about how to properly set your pricing to make sure that you are actually going to be making the money that you need to make in order to quit your 9-to-5 or quit the part-time job that you have and make this your full-time job, because that is the entire point of doing this. So before we get into packaging versus a la carte and how we want to present our pricing to our brides, we want to start by figuring out how much we need to charge. This is a little bit more math forward as people would think. You can just start guessing on your price and say, oh, okay, well, the girl next to me charges $50, so I'm gonna charge $50. Well, let me tell you, your expenses and her expenses might be very different. So she might be able to afford $50 and you might not be able to. So let's figure out what you can afford and also how we can factor our taxes into our pay. The first thing that I want you to find, and this is going to be a kind of big undertaking if you do not know these numbers. So lucky for you, have a full free course on how to find these numbers. I'm going to walk you through everything, and I'm going to provide you spreadsheets to make it a little bit easier on yourself. So that's going to be linked down below. It's called I'm a Numbers Girl. We're going to get how much our expenses are every month, how much our business expenses are. So we're going to have our personal expenses and our business expenses, and then we're going to figure out the average amount of services that we are going to or want to do per month. These three numbers are super crucial to setting proper pricing for yourself, especially when you're starting out. So figure out how much money it costs you to live. That's just the basics for you to live. So I have a whole budget spreadsheet that's going to be here for you. You're going to fill that out, and then you're going to get this number. So for this example, we're going to use $3,000. So this is going to be how much we personally need to just base live, nothing else. Then we're going to find our business expenses. Any expense that it costs you to run your business. That is kit stuff, that is CRMs, that's processing fees. Anything that it costs you to run your business is going to be this number. For this example, we're going to use $500. So together, we have $3,500. These two numbers together is how much we need to break even just to basically scrape by. And that is not the goal, but we need this number first. Next, we're going to figure out how many services, not weddings, services we're going to do per month. You can take all of the weddings that you do and all of the services you have and add it up for the entire year and then divide it. You can get this number however you feel. I would say just do an average amount of services or how many services you intend to do. I'm not talking about jobs, I'm talking about services. So if you do hair and makeup, that's 2 services. If you do 3 makeup, that's 3 services. We're talking just services. For this example, we are going to say we're going to do 50 services per month. So we're going to take these 2 numbers from before and we're going to divide them by 50. So we're going to divide 500 by 50 and 3,000 by 50. We have 60 and we have 10. Obviously adding those together, that's going to be $70. So our base pay, just base that we need to scrape by, is $70. That's how much we have to charge per service in order for us to survive. Now we're going to figure out how much ideally we want to make a month, and then we're going to factor our taxes into our ideal number. For this example, I wrote down $5,500. That's how much that I want to take home after taxes. That is $2,000 that I need other than to basically survive. So then we're going to divide our 50 services by our $5,500, because in that $5,500, we are including the $3,500 from before. So that's the extra $2,000 getting the $5,500. We're going to divide 5,500 by 50, and that is going to equal 110. So our base pay for us to make our goal income is going to be $110 per service. Now let's factor in our taxes. I do all of my state tax. I live in Florida. I estimate at around 26%. You need to figure out how much you need to estimate for your particular state taxes. So make sure that you look this up, but I do 26% personally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to times 5,500 times 0.26 to figure out how much money in taxes we would have to pay on that $5,500 of income. And that is going to be $1,430. So then we're going to add that to our $5,500, and that is going to be $6,930. This number is going to be what we need to make in order to pay our taxes, make a little extra money, and survive. Then we're going to divide this number by 50 to find out our ideal per service number, and that is going to be $138.60 or $140. So our ideal amount per service, after we did all the math to make sure that we're covering all our bases, is going to be $140 per service. So I would say this is what your bridesmaid price should start at. If you want to increase, if you want to decrease, that's totally up to you, but this is your starting number. Give yourself room to get a raise every year and increase by 10 to 20% every year. You want to also make sure that you're factoring in if your expenses change, and every single time that you want to or need to change your prices, you want to redo all of these numbers for yourself. So this is our base price. I would say double this number for a bride per service. So instead of charging $140, it's going to be $140 for bridesmaids and $280 for a bride. And that is going to be one of the best ways for you to get your prices. It's going to make sure that you're covering all your bases and that you're getting data-driven pricing instead of just guessing. Next, we're going to talk about, do I do a la carte pricing or do I package my pricing? Let me tell you, neither one of these are wrong, and both of these are very, very amazing strategies, but I'm going to help you pick which one is going to be better for you based on how you want to structure your business. First, if you are a single artist, which meaning you're not a dual artist, you do either hair or makeup, not both. So if you are just a makeup artist, I would say a package pricing is going to work much better for you, and the same thing with hairstylists. I think this is going to be a much easier, more approachable thing for most of your brides. If you are a dual artist, I personally would recommend a la carte pricing. I think a la carte pricing makes it a lot easier because when you're doing both, you are most of the time going to be doing a bigger number of services, and that way people can kind of customize their plan instead of having to run through packaging and making more work for yourself. So ideally, packages are going to be either your minimum amount of services or your maximum amount of services. I say having 3 packages maximum is good. Having a lower tier, a middle tier, and the highest tier possible. And make sure that each of these go up in value as they go up in price. And they work differently. With the packaging, people feel better seeing the total up front and they already know what they're getting themselves into. It's kind of like a Happy Meal versus just buying a cheeseburger, right? But let's say you want 5 cheeseburgers, you're not going to buy 5 Happy Meals, you're just going to buy 5 cheeseburgers, right? So if people want 3 hair and 2 makeup done, a package is not going to make sense. It's going to create more work for you and more mathematical work for the bride instead of just being like, okay, here's her service list. I have this, this, and this. Sounds good. I know exactly how much she's going to charge me. It all is just going to depend on how you are going to approach your ideal client and how you want to present yourself to them. Let's talk about how we would present both of these pricing options to our brides. What I would recommend with an a la carte pricing is a pricing menu, a photo or PDF for people to just look at with a list of pricing that's pretty and in your branding so they can see all of the options that you have, and it's all laid out nice and pretty for them on your website, on your Instagram, and basically anywhere that people are going to look for your services. Packaging is a little bit more effort and is a little bit more tricky when it comes to presenting it to your bride. Typically, I would say do no more than 3 packages. Sometimes when there's too many options, people get decision fatigue and it feels like I don't know which one is going to be best for me. So keep it simple, keep 3 packages. A low tier, a medium tier, and a high tier. On your website, on your Instagram, any client-facing platform, you want to lay out exactly how much each package is, what they get inside each package, and what the limitations are to each package. You want to make sure visually that your client understands that this is the lowest tier, this is the medium tier, and this is the high tier. I would do this by adding graphics and making the highest tier bolder. You're obviously going to get more in the highest tier, but it is going to be more expensive. You want to highlight the value of your highest tier. Hello Editing, Haley here as the cheeseburger. I wanted to also add in that your middle tier should be the package that most people end up booking, so the most common package, and your highest tier should not be exponentially higher than your middle tier, right? It should just be a smidgen more with like more services or like an add-on or two. We want the juiciest package to kind of be the middle, and then the top package be like the luxury one. So if people are wanting to add more, they can, but that way they are feeling like they're kind of getting a deal with the middle package, but that would be the one that most people would intentionally want them to buy, if that makes sense. Right in the middle is going to be where most of the money comes from. With both of these pricing options, the most important thing for you to do is make sure that your potential clients have access to this before they even book you. Stop making people search for your pricing, or stop making pricing up just all willy-nilly per client. This is not a standard that we should be upholding in the beauty industry. We should not be just making up prices as people go. It's not fair and it's not right. We should be charging everybody the exact same. Make sure that you make these very legible, readable, pick a very clear font whenever you're choosing this for your client-facing platform. Pricing is a very, very important part of the decision-making process for your brides. So you want to make sure that psychologically and physically, it's going to make sense for them to book you based on your pricing. Because if they really like your work and they really like you, but they can't find your pricing and they don't feel like they can trust your pricing options, you're going to lose a client. The more trust that you can build before you even speak to your bride is going to really up that booking percentage and make you more money. Another tip when it comes to pricing is make sure that you are not charging weird and random fees that you don't know what's for. The reason that we did the math before when we set our base price is to make sure that you're factoring in everything that comes with booking your bride. So however much your business expenses are should be factored into your prices. Psychologically, your brides are going to be like, what is a booking fee for? Why are you charging someone $100 just to book them? That is the cost of doing business, right? We all know that every single thing that we purchase, that we buy, services, everything has a cost to it. The business has to pay for certain things in order for the business to work. That is built into the price of whatever product or service that they are selling to you. People don't need to see the breakdown of exactly what it costs you to run the business. You cannot charge random fees because most of the time it's going to turn clients off. They are not going to understand what a booking fee is for. They're going to feel like that booking fee is just, I'm paying you $100 to answer emails, and we know how much work goes into actually doing the admin to booking a wedding or an appointment. But your clients will never see that and they will never understand that. So instead of trying to make them understand or losing a client because they are not grasping why you're charging $100 for, to them, no reason, build it into your pricing and make sure that you're making enough money off of every single service that you aren't having to charge random fees. We're going to jump to talk about all of the policies that we need to build a proper contract. Your policies are basically the rules of your business that apply to your client and yourself. These are going to change as you go throughout your business. You're going to remove things, you're going to add things, you're going to have experiences that you're like, holy shit, we got to add that into the policy because I'm never doing that again. And that is super, super normal to do that going forward. Everybody has different preferences and different policies when it comes to how they conduct their business and themselves. So I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of different policies, and I want you to list out a full list of policies before we even start thinking about our contract. Your policies are going to be what your contract is built on. So we want to make sure that we have very solid policies, not only to protect ourselves, but to protect our client and come across super professional to our clients. A few examples for policies are going to be, what time do you charge an early morning fee? So is it anything before 6:30 a.m.? Are you willing to do anything earlier than that? I want you to figure out how early and how late you are willing to take appointments, and then if there is a fee included in that. So I have a fee anything before 6:30 in the morning. It's a $100 early morning fee on top of my travel fee. Some people are not willing. There are so many bridal orders that are not even willing to take things before 6 a.m. So you can set those parameters because you are your own boss, and if you are not a morning person, you don't have to be. Another is going to be travel. How far are you willing to travel and how much is that going to cost, right? You can do the per mile travel. I personally do it by time. If a drive is going to take me 30 minutes, I start at $45 for every 30 minutes. There and back. So that's totally up to you on what you want to do with travel. Make sure that you have a travel policy. I also throw in anything that's over 2 hours, that anything that's over a 2-hour drive, I do require a hotel room and stay the night before. But make sure that you figure out whatever travel policies are going to work best for you. Another is services. How many services are you willing to do? Is 10 your max amount of services that you want to take? Is 10 the amount of services that you want to take, period? Are you flexible? Are you able to do up to 20 with your team? Figure out how many services is going to be your minimum. How much you want to take for a deposit. So I personally do 20% of the estimated wedding total, but you can do a flat rate, you can do a percentage, you can do whatever it is that you want. Just make sure that you have a strong policy with that. Then you want to have a policy for when people have to stop making changes to their wedding day. So I have a 90-day time period that everything has to be set in stone. There is no changes, adding or dropping of services within 90 days of the wedding. The wedding also cannot be canceled within those 90 days. Within the 90 days, the cancellation, the full amount is going to be due because I have said no to other opportunities or other jobs that would be there to fill that. And so they will owe us the full amount if the wedding is canceled within that 90-day period. Then we talk about compensation. So here are a few things that I have when it comes to fees, late fees, and different things in my personal contract. Actually, I'm going to read directly from you for how it's phrased in my policy list. The client agrees to pay the invoice on the agreed upon due date stated on the final invoice sent. Payment made after that date will incur a late fee of 5% per day on the outstanding amount. The contractor, aka me, will be reimbursed for expenses related to the services, which are approved by the client in advance. So this means any expenses that it costs, so parking, valet, anything like that, the client is going to get charged for that. Client agrees to a $30 fee per 30 minutes if the client is late, not due to the contractor. So if I am late, if I am running behind, obviously that is not going to incur a charge for the bride. That is if Aunt Sally decided that she didn't want to leave her house and I'm sitting there for 30 minutes, you're going to get charged a late fee. And then I have a day of payment. I do not take day of payment. I do not take checks and I do not take cash. I only take credit card and it is due 5 days prior to the wedding. That is the minimum amount of time. If I do not have the money paid in full before the wedding, I am not showing up. That is also inside of my contract. So if I do not have payment, I will not be coming to perform services. I also have an exceptions policy, right? So we want to have policies in case crazy shit happens because sometimes crazy shit happens. So I'm going to read to you directly for terminations of agreements, right? Global pandemics, death, natural events, or illness, all terminations will be handled by a case-by-case basis and are at the discretion of the contractor. The client acknowledges that no refunds will be given if services are canceled on the day of the wedding, and another person is able to take the services if they wish. Clients agree that the number of services and the address in this agreement are correct, and any changes must be made via email and confirmed by the contractor. So even if 10 hours before the wedding, you send me a different address and you don't hear from me, you've got to make sure that I confirm the changes with you and that it's all in writing. So these are my day of service policies. So that's all of my compensation policies. You can add and take away things from the compensation policies that you want. These are my day of service policies. So I have arrival. I basically am going to put in how you want your clients to arrive. Bare face, they don't have caked on makeup, they don't have wet hair, they haven't showered in 4 days. I ask for a clean, bare face and dry hair. So make sure that you outline that in your policies and you send that to them multiple times. I also make sure that I put that the space that the services are being performed in is available at the time scheduled. This is something that I unfortunately have had to add in there because sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't really think about the fact that I couldn't get into my venue until 11. How are we going to start services at 9 if we can't get into the space at 11? I have had to do makeup out of the back of my car before, so we're going to put that in our policies so that you don't have to do that. And the client has full knowledge of how to access the space. Again, one of those little clauses that has been in there due to lots and lots of experiences that, oh, well, the venue said that we could get in, but I never asked how, and the gate's locked, and I can't get in touch with the person. make sure that you know how to get into the venue if nobody's going to be there to help you in the morning. I have no-shows and late arrival policies. The contractor will arrive at the agreed upon location at the specified time as outlined in the GLAM schedule, which will be confirmed via email. The client does not arrive, does not respond, and the emergency contact cannot be reached within 30 minutes of the scheduled time. The contractor will leave the location. In this case, no refund will be issued. I have had this happen before. So if I show up and you're still sleeping, I can't get in touch with you, and I'm standing outside your door for 30 minutes, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna keep your money because you did not respect my time. Just a policy that I have just from experience. And then I have, it is the client's responsibility to contact the contractor through the provided phone number or email if any delays or issues arise. Please ensure all communication is made promptly to avoid any disruptions to the services. This is a very important one. We're going to talk about spacing and our equipment, okay? The client must provide a clean and safe working environment for the contractors with ample space, lighting, and restrooms. If any, and that sounds silly, but please put it in your policies. If any equipment or personal belongings of the contractors are damaged due to the client assumes full responsibility for paying for the damages at the price point paid by the contractor. So if you take one of my pallets and chuck it across the room, you're paying full price for that particular product or anything. If you throw my phone across the room, you are going to be charged for that. And then I have in here, the client understands that all products are owned by each individual artist and are individually sanitized and cannot be touched or used by anyone other than the artist. Any products that are deemed unusable due to cross-contamination at fault of the client or anyone assumed by the client. So I have in my contract that the person signing this contract is assuming responsibility for everyone getting services. That is something that you want to make sure that you outline inside your contract as well. They will be charged to the client or the person that is paying for the services. If children are present, it's important that they are supervised diligently by an adult and cannot be running around or touching any of the equipment. Children under 5 will not be serviced with hot tools. No, I am not curling your 2-year-old's hair. A 2-year-old does not have the wherewithal to just sit there and let us curl their hair. It is a liability for me. I don't work with anyone under 5. Sometimes I'll put a little lip gloss on them and that's fine. The liability is not potentially worth harming a child or potentially burning a little teeny baby. Will not be doing that. No siree, that's up to you, but I will not be doing that. Okay, so let's talk about completion of service policies, right? Services will be completed to the client's satisfaction. Acceptance of the completed services is a verbal acknowledgement by the client that they are satisfied with the services provided. If the services are not completed to the client's satisfaction and the client does not inform the contractor while the contractor is performing services, the service will not be refunded or disputed. So they cannot in 3 days text you and be like, well, girl, I hated my makeup. If you didn't say anything, if you weren't an adult and decided to say anything before you left the chair, you're not getting your money back. The next is parking and on-location policies, right? In the instance that parking fees are necessary, they will be billed either before or after the appointment. If valet services is offered, the contractor must valet. I personally put this in because sometimes I am not walking 3 miles from the parking garage to your, no, I'm valeting. Just in my contract, I have always done that. You choose that if you don't want to valet, that's up to you, girl. But that's what I put in there. Valet charges will be billed to the room given to the contractor by the client. The contractor must park close to the vicinity of the getting ready location and will not relocate during the duration of the services unless compensated and discussed in advance. I have had this happen multiple times of like, oh, well, my soon-to-be husband is going to take over this room, so we have to move to a different room. No. It took me 30 minutes to set up. It's going to take me 30 minutes to break down, another 30 minutes to reset up. Then we're about an hour and a half behind on your timeline, and that's a lot of work for me to do to not get paid for. So if they want to relocate, I have done that before. I just add a fee. It's like $100. I have a $100 relocation fee if that's the case, and then we have to build that into the timeline. And then I have, if desired, touch-up time can be arranged and an hourly fee will be applied. I have that in my pricing menu as well for the hourly touch-up fees after that. early morning policies and holiday policies. As I discussed before, I do have anything before 6:30 a.m. when it comes to early morning. Sometimes I will do more than that if it's super, super early. So if it's like, if I'm getting ready at midnight, I do like $150. It just kind of depends. Most people aren't going to do that, but because I'm in Florida and I do quite a bit of Disney weddings, that's something that I just have to have in my policies. But most people outside of Disney won't ever have to get someone ready at midnight. So I have $200 will be added to any bookings on the following dates: Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day, Thanksgiving, Easter, and Memorial Day. A $100 early fee will be applied for any wedding start time earlier than 6:30 a.m. A $200 fee will be applied if the start time is before 2 a.m. Then I have, okay, now we're gonna go to cancellation and emergency policies. This is an important one, okay? So again, I'm just going to tell you what my policies are. I will tell you also if there's anything that you need to add to these. The contractor agrees that in the event of a personal emergency preventing the stylist from reaching the location, a full refund will be issued to the client. The contractor will attempt to find coverage if available. If not, a refund will be administered. So if the stylist, if you get into a car accident and you cannot make it, I'm obviously going to give you a refund. I'm going to do my best to try to get someone, but sometimes the cookie just doesn't crumble the way you want it, girl. So, I just tell them I will give you a refund. I'm really sorry. Things happen. There's nothing that you can do. You are a human being. We cannot, foresee every single circumstance that would potentially happen to us. So, that it's going to be okay, guys. And then if the client cancels within 90 days of the wedding date, the client remains responsible for the full contracted amount and no refunds of the deposits or payments will be given. If the client is sick or shows visible signs of illness that make the contractor uncomfortable to perform services and no prior discussion is had, the client will not receive a refund. The contractor cannot legally work on or near any open or healing wounds, sores, lice, or any visible signs of illness. If you are coughing, sweating, sneezing, I'm not getting in your face, girl. I don't want to get sick. It's not fair for you to have the flu and expect me to do your makeup or hair or anything like that. Same thing if you have lice, if you have open head wounds, if you have rashes, cold sores, anything like that, you have the right to refuse service. So if you are uncomfortable at any point, you need to put in your policies that, hey girl, if I'm uncomfortable, I'm not doing it. Then I have timing and photo release information. So I have the client agrees that the timing and information given to the contractor is accurate and will be followed on the day of services. If the client provides inaccurate information, the contractor is not at fault for any issues that arise. If you tell me you need to be done at 3 o'clock and you really need to be done at 2:30, and on the day of, I'm like, well, what do you mean, girl? That's not on me, that's on you. The client grants the contractor permission to use any photos, videos, or other media captured during the wedding event for marketing, advertising, and promotional purposes, including but not limited to social media, websites, portfolio materials. This includes content collected with verbal consent. The client releases the contractor from any claims regarding the use of such content. The client may request the removal of any photos or videos from the platform at any time. So if I also have in my forms, if you do not consent to having your photo taken, you let me know, girl. I will never take your photo. And if at any time you want me to take anything down, I always will grant my clients the privacy of that. Content is great. Content is basically how I run my business. But if your client does not feel comfortable, I will never, ever, 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 ever in a million years pressure them to take anything. A lot of my clients love it because that's how they see me and they enjoy seeing their videos. But sometimes the moms or some people don't want, and I always have a rule: children do not go on the internet. That's my personal rule. So I don't film flower girls or anything like that. I don't post anything of children, but that's just me. So then I'm going to have policies for the client's responsibility and my rights as a stylist. I have the client understands and agrees that the contractor, me, has the right to refuse service and will not issue a refund if any of the terms of this agreement are broken. This includes but is not limited to a breach of any of the policies above, physical or verbal abuse of the contractor by the client or anyone receiving services, or failure of payment. The contractor reserves the right to apply extra fees to the client as the artist's discretion if applicable. The client assumes full responsibility for any of the person or persons receiving services on the day in question. So make sure that you have all of these things written out in your policies so that when you go to make your contract, your list of policies is basically going to be your contract in fancy words. And that is basically all of the policies that I have in order to run my bridal business. So what I want you to do is I want you to create an entire full list of policies. I find it really, really helpful to plug this into ChatGPT. Just write out your list, and then ChatGPT will kind of frame them into a little bit more of a professional way if you need a little bit of help with phrasing and how to directly put it and how to directly put it into like a policy list for yourself and for your client. Then I want you, after you have your list of policies, you're going to create your contract. I have full contract templates down below for you. You can purchase them so you can create your own flawless contract, but what you're gonna do is just take all of your policies and make that into a legally binding contract. If you need to consult a lawyer, I would find that very important for you to do. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything that we talked about in this video, I would love for you to comment below, or you can join the chat and we can talk all about it together. I can't wait to see you for week 4, the first month of our 2-month program. I will see you very soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day.